Aloha, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to the Love, Peace, Harmony Foundation's Heart Talk. I am Diane Fujio. I am a program director at the Love, Peace, Harmony Foundation, and I welcome you to join us today so that we can learn more about a very important topic. We are learning from professionals whose hearts are really concerned about our climate warming and what's happening in the world. So, joining me today is my co host, Sarah Baker. Sarah is a master teacher at the Vancouver Center for Master Shah's beautiful center in Vancouver. And Sarah and I will be the co host today to talk story, and as we say in Hawaii, where I come from, with these two professionals that know a lot. So, Sarah's really came up with this topic today. So, would you like to share, Sarah, a little bit about the background and why we are going into climate change and sustainability?
Yes, thank you so much. And it's just so wonderful that we're having this conversation at the same time that people are having conversations all over the world about climate change because, of course, which started on the 1st of November and goes through for a couple of weeks. And very exciting to be a part of that in some sort of extended way. Of course, climate change is on high on our minds for most of us now because we can see what's happening. I know for you, Diane, you live in an island situation. You're vulnerable to the rising oceans, and as many island communities around the world are. I live here in the west coast of Canada, in British Columbia, where we've gone through a summer like we never saw before, in which we had what they called a heat dome.
Wow.
And it was an extreme heat wave that would not move. It was just a dome over the province.
And
And temperature.
one of the things that's happening, and you can see, is Sarah's internet is freezing back and forth because there's so much demand for all that we're pulling on Mother Earth for all of her resources, and all of us on the grid using all of the resources at the same time.
So I apologize if that's going in and out. I know it's been an issue. And this is just part of what's happening. We have, we have too much, we're having too much heat, we're having too much rain. It's putting a strain on all the infrastructures. But thank goodness for two beautiful guests that we have this morning. We have Charles Appleby with us, who is part of the Love, Peace, and Harmony's Plant a Million project. He is the coordinator for the UK and harmony to our environment and climate. He is also the founder of an organization called No CO2, which is also helping people plant trees. So you can see that is really in Charles's heart to be personally hands-on involved in helping to try and change the way the world is going. And it takes the kind of commitment that Charles has for each one of us to find a way that we can help support the flourishing of Mother Earth rather than the depletion of Mother Earth. And Charles will tell us more about what his organizations are doing, and you can be a part of that too. So I welcome Charles Appleby to be with us this morning. Welcome, Charles.
Charles.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much, Sarah.
Such joy.
So my name is Charles Appleby, and as Sarah was saying, that I've recently taken on the role with the Plant a Million project to be the UK and European coordinator. So I live near to London, and I have to say there's a lot of excitement in the UK at the moment
Mhm.
about what's happening in Glasgow. So back over to you, Sarah.
Yes, I was thinking how exciting that must be to be there with all of the world leaders gathering together to discuss. I heard some good news this morning as I was listening in a little bit to say that there has been some sort of commitment on the part of major parties in the world to stop deforestation by 2030. So of course that will be a real boon to your organization and to all of us to really get inspired to contribute, because we can. Could you please tell us, Charles, what it is that people can do through your organization to be a part of this tree planting initiative?
Well, Sarah, there's just so much that people can do. But I think, first of all, just to set the scene, what's going on in Glasgow with all of these world leaders getting together, it's just so important because they really are literally, they're deciding the future of the planet. So if they make the right decisions, the scientists are saying that we need to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees maximum. So if world leaders are able to make that decision, then we'll all have a safer planet for all of us to live in. And that's not just us, it's all wildlife as well. On the other hand, if certain countries hold out, and if enough countries hold out and say, look, we're not able to do this, we've got our own reasons, we've got our own other priorities, then we can have a situation where the world is not able to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees, and therefore that affects us all. And that's going to result in millions more people dying and billions of animals dying, and it's going to result in potentially, 1 billion people losing their livelihoods. Not in the most of the US or the UK or most of Europe. This will be mainly in other countries, in poorer countries, where people are already poor and marginal. So to come back to your question, Sarah, you asked what can people do about it? Well, there's just so many things that we all need to do, we all need to think about, because this impacts all of our lives. I mean, we can talk a bit more about it in a minute, but let me first of all just link it to the trees. So you mentioned, Sarah, the good news about stopping deforestation. I mean, stopping deforestation, people have known about this for so many years. It's just so important. And yet over the last couple of years, the Amazon rainforest has lost more trees than ever. So there's what we would say, there's really a wheel off with this process. At the top level, everyone's committed to stopping deforestation, but at the ground level, the tree level, it's not happening. And hence more and more trees are being cut down. And it's such a difficult problem. Now, I looked at 6 years ago myself, I looked at what I could do to help stop global warming, which is when I got interested in it. And I looked at stopping deforestation. And I thought, well, look, it's so important. But for me, I felt I could really do more with the other service, which is planting trees. I felt I could do more with planting trees. And
Yeah,
it's down to this, where everyone needs to do what's really in
I
your heart that
was
you can do.
so touched. Sorry, I was just really touched when I read in your biography where you said, think about a person in the 2050s if things don't change. And I've got children that will be alive in the 2050s at probably about my age, and that I am now. And it said, you said, in the middle of a massive climate breakdown, a world of rising sea levels, failing crops, food shortages, conflict over land, and millions of climate refugees, what on earth are you doing to let this happen? And what did you do to help stop it? And I think this is why it's so important what you're doing, because it gives people that sense of, yes, I can do something at my personal level. But Charles, can I ask, and this wasn't something I had actually sort of planned, but I'm thinking, well, that's great. So 8 billion of us get on the wagon, and we start planting trees. We stop our carbon emissions as much as we can. as we saw has been happening with COVID, it cleared up in that first bit because we weren't driving and things. But, you know, if countries like China is not even at COP26 this year, and, you know, they're one of the major contributors, and I wonder how can we as a global community bring more love, peace, and harmony to encourage those countries that perhaps haven't been contributing to contribute? Is there something that we could offer, do you think?
Well, there's quite a technical answer to this one, Sarah. I don't know how, I'm not quite sure how much love, peace, and harmony there is in the solution. But anyway, I think the first thing is to say that planting trees, the simpler thing of planting trees is just so effective and it's so helpful. So if people are not sure what to do, as Sarah said, it's so important to actually cut the fossil fuels that we use where possible. But having done that, and then something that's very easy we can all do is to plant trees. And the Plant a Million organization, and if someone can pop the link into the chat, that would be very helpful. But with the Love, Peace and Harmony organization, you can plant as many as 10 trees for $1. And those trees will grow more quickly than they will in the US or Europe because they're in the tropics, and they're also creating paid work for people who are in extreme poverty. So that's something really important that we can all do, and I've planted lots of trees myself that way. Okay, but your question, Sarah, about China is more complicated. So I think we have to look first of all at really what people's motivations are. And so it was back in 2015 that in December 2015 that most countries of the world came together to agree, and the agreement they made was to keep global warming well below 2 degrees centigrade, that is. Okay? And so since then, in 2018, scientists said, well, look, keeping temperature below 2 degrees, well below 2 degrees centigrade is good, but actually to be much safer, we really need to be looking at 1.5 degrees.
Yes.
And so China, the news that I saw about this just a few days ago is that China has a problem because people are buying so many goods from China. We're all buying goods from China, not necessarily because we want the goods to come from China, but we want the goods, and those goods happen to be made in China. And so their industry has got a huge demand for energy to supply the goods we all want after coronavirus. And hence, the only way they've got of supplying that amount of energy is to burn more coal. And so you can say, well, they should have known about this for 6 years. They should have done more about it. They have tried to do things, I guess, but they've just not done enough. But what it means is that moving forward, the economists have been talking a long time about having carbon pricing. And so really to put in place carbon pricing is so important. And particularly, I think, for yourselves in the US, the European Union has come up with something called carbon border adjustment pricing. And so with that, then obviously there'd be a price that would penalize.
Yes, we have that. We have that in Vancouver. We have a carbon tax here in our global climate carbon tax now to help people establish this. And we actually have as our next guest a beautiful woman that I'd love you to have a conversation with, because these two things really come together with the work that Ananya is doing. And Diane is going to introduce Ananya for us, a beautiful young woman doing some amazing work.
Yes, and Ananya Tiwari is one of those young people at that time that she was one of the first, together with other young people, that started for the Love, Peace, Harmony Foundation, the Plant a Million program. So it's really an honor because, you know, to have more young people really concerned about our climate. She is a doctoral researcher in Ireland, and she's conducting amazing studies for the European Union on how to adapt to adverse effects of climate change, including the sea level rise, the coastal storms, and floods in Europe. She has a master's in climate change, development, and policy from the University of Sussex, and her has vast experience working as a sustainability analyst at the environmental consultancy. And like I said, she was one of the originators of Plant a Million. So it's really an honor to have this beautiful young woman here with us today.
Thank you so much for your very warm welcome. It's an honor to be here today with all of you.
Yeah. So you've been listening in the backstage what Charles was sharing about, for me, I always like to take the positive steps, what we can do, not worry so much about what can't be done, because sometimes I don't feel that I can influence as quickly, but what I can do. So can you give us a little background about from your perspective, and you're at the macro level on changes, doing the research,
Yeah.
presenting it so that our leaders know that this is the best course of action. But we, the average person, the young people like you, what can we do at this time that
Right.
is most effective?
So, thank you very much for that question. I feel very passionately about that question because a lot of times, looking at the scale and the pace of climate change, many of us, and especially young people, experience eco anxiety. We just feel overwhelmed and we feel like there's nothing we can do. And we
Mm,
feel like the earth is not maybe gonna, like we're gonna have an apocalyptic situation and we can't really do much about it. But having been working in this field for the last couple of years, I have come to the realization that there is actually a lot we can do and we can make a significant impact. So, to answer your question more directly, I would say there are a number of things we can start with. Planting trees is a great initiative. Planting trees sequesters carbon from the atmosphere, actually, which is the main greenhouse gas causing climate change and global warming. So, that is like a direct effect it has on the environment. But apart from that, planting trees also helps with biodiversity. Reforestation, of course, has several benefits for wildlife, for the soil, for the water, for the air, and overall environmental impacts. So there's way more to planting trees than just stopping global warming, really. And the second step that I personally have been following for the last couple of years is I have really reduced my meat and dairy intake because
mm,
meat and dairy have like a really large greenhouse gas emission. So that is something I also feel very passionately about. And it's these are very small steps that we can take. Just reduce your number of flights every year because your flights have a huge carbon impact. um, Try to reduce your the amount of kilometers on your vehicle, or maybe switch to an electronic vehicle. So very simple steps that we can take in our day-to-day life. Try reducing plastic use. Plastic is actually one of the largest industries that cause the biggest climate emissions. So, reducing your plastic consumption, of course, helps the environment in several other ways, but also stops climate change. And just to like share a quick fact, um, every human being in this world ingests almost microplastics that are equivalent to the size of a credit card. So this much microplastics every week, and all of us. So microplastics are a really big problem. And as part in my university, they're also doing research on how to be able to degrade these, like create biodegradable plastics, so that we can stop harming the environment. So yeah, there are a lot of things we can do. Of course, for me personally, these individual lifestyle changes are really important. But in the bigger picture, I know their impact is not going to be as much if the others don't follow me. So, another quick fact: 71% of global emissions come from 100 top global companies alone. So,
mm,
100 companies in the world are causing more than 70% global emissions. And even if, as an individual, I completely stop emitting altogether, I know the effect is going to be very limited. So the most important thing for me personally is to participate in these conferences like the COP26, or participate in protests and rallies, and really take this message to those leaders, or to those company CEOs, or those chairpersons who can really have an impact. And most of these companies are oil companies. So my friend actually is a documentary filmmaker at the COP26, and he has created a documentary where a lot of us young people have shared our message with these the leaders present at COP26. And the main key message that we've tried to put across is for these oil companies to stop investing so much in oil production, and instead maybe invest in renewable energy. So I guess that, in essence, is the most important thing we can do. Really give our message to these world leaders so that they can hear us, so that they know this is important to us. Because unless we make them hear what our hearts really want, they will probably prioritize economic development and other goals over this. So it's really important to do that. And finally, the last thing that I have been doing is I have been working in the dedicating my professional life to fighting climate change. So I could have chosen to be anything else, right? Lawyer, doctor, whatever. But for me, this is one of the biggest challenges facing humanity right now. And I was really sure that no matter what, I will work on this. And I think a lot of people, young people especially these days, are really motivated and inspired to do the same. So yeah, I feel like this is a rapidly growing field. There are so many new opportunities coming up in this field, and it's a very interesting, intricate challenge to work on. And there is so much growth, so much learning that has personally happened for me working in this sector. So I would really encourage all the young people around the world to try and switch to this, because really we can either focus on living a good life or earning money, or we can do the same while serving the planet and while serving its people. So I think that is a personal choice that all of us can make and should make. And yeah, that is my message to all the young people today.
Beautiful. And I feel more hopeful because the four little steps, they're not little, they're huge. On a personal level, planting trees, not using so much plastics, making a conscious effort in what we consume, and
Yeah,
and trying to, you know, use less fuel ourselves. If all of us, 8 billion, did that together, that would
yeah,
impact. Of course, educating ourselves on those that we need to ask to join us in the changes, the big companies. Thank you. Thank you for that. Beautiful. And I know that Charles, as a regional coordinator, for Love, Peace, and Harmony, and he's passionate about planting trees, that it's a way that not only we can do it on the micro level within our own personal lives, but we can also do a large scale planting, for Mother Earth through our sponsored partner, Eden Reforestation and One Tree Planted. So when you first started out, Ananya, what was the reason that you decided to create that program? You and there were others
yeah.
together that did this.
Yeah, so I have been with the Left Peace Harmony Foundation for the last 10 years, and our teacher, Dr. and Master Shah, really encourages us to serve. And as part of that, a lot of us young people gathered together at one of Master Shah's global retreats, and we thought, what can we do for the planet? And inspired by Master Shah's vision, I think we thought that planting trees is something we can all do. It's very simple. It's something that is possible globally. So even though we are living in different parts of the world, we can still all plant trees. And it has, like I said earlier, numerous environmental impacts. So not only sequestering carbon, but also helping biodiversity, helping land, water, air, soil, everything. So that is the main reason why we sort of selected this as our goal. And also, planting trees can be very cost effective as well. So if instead if you look at like modern carbon sequestration technologies, they are pretty costly and they're not accessible easily to the public. Of course, if you can find ways to invest in that, go ahead. That's also a great option. But planting trees, I feel personally, is much simpler, much more accessible to everyone. So yeah, that is, I guess, that was our motivation. And over the years, it's just been really heart touching to see how this movement has grown. And I was previously working with a company where we were planting 10 million trees near Mumbai. So I think they are going to now partner with Plant a Million, and we're probably going to plant more than 1 million trees, which is very exciting. And planting trees can also really help disadvantaged communities because, like Charles said earlier, a lot of these poorer or vulnerable communities are going to bear the greatest impact of climate change. So, planting trees has numerous effects for adaptation. So, like as part of my project with the European Union, I know that nature based solutions or like planting trees can really help with sea level rise. Like you plant mangroves near the coastal habitats, and they can sort of help with coastal flooding. So, it has benefits for adaptation. It also, like as part of our project, we are paying these vulnerable communities actually to plant, so gives them like a sustainable source of livelihood. And of course it helps with mitigating climate change, mitigating the emissions. So numerous benefits. I can go on and on about trees. I love trees. So yeah, I guess that was our initial motivation to do that. And I would just encourage everyone to plant as many trees as possible. It's a very small investment for a very large goal. Because I don't know if all of you know this, but recently, last year actually, the UN released a statement saying that this decade is probably the final decade where we can actually do something about saving our planet. So we have maybe 10 years before we can actually limit that warming within the 1.5 or 2 degree range. And if we don't do it right now, the Earth could warm up to 3 or 4 or 5 degrees, which is the trajectory that we are on right now, 3 to 4 degrees. And that can be, I know 3 to 4 degrees sounds like, oh, if countries like the UK or Canada are 3 degrees warmer, probably will be nice for us. But it's going to be very harmful for the environment because it has a lot of these ripple effects. Like, for instance, just one small example. If the planet warms 3 to 4 degrees, all of the ice in the Arctic can start
Mm.
melting,
Yes.
and all the peatland there has stored toxins and bacteria and viruses and even nuclear waste for centuries. And once that is released into the air, we can have major pandemics because our human systems are not really accustomed to those bacteria and viruses. So it
Yeah.
can be like a very difficult apocalyptic situation. Another example that comes to mind is if the ocean warms up by 3 to 4 degrees, a lot of the ocean currents will be affected. So, for
Mm.
example, near Europe, we have something called the Gulf Stream, which is responsible for warming up Europe. And if that stops because of changes in temperature, uh, the Europe and North America and regions that are closer to the pole will become so cold that they will become inhabitable. And
Mm.
regions that are sort of closer to the tropics, they will become so much warmer that they will become also inhabitable. So this circulation is really important for maintaining equilibrium in our planet in terms of temperature. So these are some really tiny examples of what could happen if the planet does warm like that. So yeah, planting trees is a crucial step for us to stop that. And yeah, I hope that answers your question.
So, I mean,
Yes.
for me, these examples that Ananya you've given, these bring us back to the absolute importance of what's happening at the moment in Glasgow.
Yeah,
So, so what's really happening there is that there's been a number of countries who've are making the agreement to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees, and so those are G7 countries, which include the UK, the USA, and the European Union. But there are a number of countries which are at the moment outside that envelope.
Mm.
And so a lot of the discussion is really about what the what COP26, what other world leaders are going to do to bring everything into line. And so there's at the sort of activism level, I think there's going to be a lot more people like Greta Thunberg, who's been out on the streets, bringing people out onto the streets. It's obviously easier to protest in the West than it is
Yeah.
in some other countries. But some of the countries where they're not in alignment are countries where one could imagine, be hopeful that if it comes to this, there will have to be protests. But let me just pick up on another point which Ananya made, which is really important. These 70 or 80, whatever it is, really big companies that are the main polluters. So
Mhm.
in the main, as Ananya says, these are oil companies. And what their argument is, they say, well, look, we're only producing the oil that you want. So every time we go to the petrol pump to fill up, every time we get on an aircraft, that aircraft needs fuel. So their argument is, look, it's you lot out there who are buying the air tickets, who are buying the fuel for your car, you're contributing to the problem. So we have this whole world economy based around oil, which we have to turn around. So specifically on that, I think we have to confront decision makers with this fact that are they actually doing enough directly to stop productions, to stop the use of oil instead of other things? So there's a lot going on with renewables, but are those renewables actually directly substituting for oil, or are they just adding to the world's total energy consumption? And this is a very, very tricky, very tricky matter. And that's
Yeah.
where the discussion about carbon pricing, and obviously what you're doing in Canada, is fantastic, Sarah. We call it in the UK, we call it the Ontario model. I'm not quite sure we don't call it the Vancouver model, but we call it the Ontario model. And that model would be ideal for somewhere like the UK to implement. So what that would mean then is people would pay, if you're using fuel, you pay extra, but under that model you get a rebate. You get a rebate back from the government. But I think the thing that we need to talk about with the trees is that when you look at what you can reduce, so and then you gave the example of use the car less or to fly less. And so what happens, and just think about what happens here in reality. So you say, well, look, I'm going to fly less. And then your partner or your friend or whatever you're going with and say, well, look, oh, come on, don't be ridiculous. It's only one flight. So your ideal, your aspiration of not taking the flight or the journey, or whatever, it goes away because it's just so easy. But what you can also do is to where you have to make a flight, and this is brought into highlight today. So there was an interview on BBC Radio with one of the top people in the climate team with Nigel. He's called Nigel Topping, and the interviewer said to him, look, in Glasgow there are 120 private jets which have brought VIPs and world leaders, etc., into
Yeah.
Glasgow. And the answer is, well, people have got to have their security. I mean, what big world leaders have got to have a lot of security, and so it's just easier to fly than to drive long distances, etc., etc. But for ordinary people and for these world leaders, I feel myself that it's really important that everyone is facing up to this message. So if you are going to take a flight, then look at removing the CO2 for what you're doing. And a very, very powerful argument for me is to look at it's easiest really just to look at your whole lifestyle. So if you're in Europe,
Yeah.
then if you want to plant enough trees to remove all of my CO2, then I need to plant 1,750 trees. Now, for you folks, Sarah, Diane, it's a tough one for you folks because being in the US, same for Canada. Oh, sorry, for US, Canada, Australia, it's similar. You need to plant 4,000 trees. Now, if Ananya were living in India, she could probably get away with less trees.
Yeah.
But in Ireland, so we'll call you 1,750. And so if you do that, right, you're then removing the CO2 for your lifestyle. Okay, and those are the sort of numbers. I mean, those that to pay that amount. So 4,000 trees is $400. Okay, so that may be more than people want to pay. Obviously, you can pay that over a couple of years or 3 years or whatever. But that gives you an idea of how many trees we need. We don't just need a few. We don't just need a couple of trees in the garden. We
Yeah.
need hundreds. We need thousands of trees planted by everybody, and that's the opportunity that I really would like to reach out to people today and leave to people to think about how many trees we really need and what you might be able to do to remove the CO2 emissions.
Charles, is that an annual number you're talking?
No, that's a one-time number, Sarah.
A one-time number.
It's a one-time number. So for you folks in the US or Canada, it's 4,000 trees, one-time number for you if you're average. Now, there's a lot of people obviously who are above average, so it's very easy if you're doing a lot of flying. It's very easy to be 2 or 3 times average. So if you're 3 times average, and if you're traveling business class, etc., then you're looking at tens of thousands of trees. But okay, that's the way it is.
That is so doable.
Yeah.
In the sense that it's a one-time commitment, and you can do it over months or years, and you can take something out of your life and put it towards that. I have done that with my children. I said, Mom is not going to give you the Christmas gift, that in the mail kind of thing. Instead, I'm planting 1,000 trees for you.
Amazing.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Wow.
This gift's all figured out now.
And Diana, because where you live in Hawaii, you've got this extra challenge because you're what is it? You're thousands of miles from anywhere except the next Hawaiian island. So you people in Hawaii, you're going to have a lot of flying.
So this is what I'm doing personally. We had a workshop called Living in Aloha. It's a workshop. But in the workshop, the teacher had us get seeds. It doesn't matter what kind of seeds. You get seeds, you put it in an egg carton, and you start your seedlings. And then you put those seedlings, which is a dozen little seedlings, into the ground. The other thing that we're doing is consciously having plantings. So I'm going on November 20th up to Maui to join up on the mountain a planting group. The third thing I'm doing is I'm committing to Eden Reforestation, my $400, because every tree that we plant, as you heard, brings about the opposite balance to the emissions. And the thing is that for $1, 10 trees, the focus right now in Eden has been Madagascar, right? But they plant all over the world. So, I mean, $1 nowadays is nothing, So let's do this together. Really, really do this together.
And if you can afford a flight, international flight, you can afford the $400. You could just, even for someone who is even having difficulty financially, they can put a few dollars away each month and until it adds up. I think this is a commitment that anybody could make, and it's just so heartening. I thank you for giving us that equation, Charles, because it just puts it into practicality.
Well, thank you, Sarah, for saying that. But what I'd also say is that those four. So what we're saying, it's a one time. If you're in the US and your average fossil fuel usage, then you'd look to get 4,000 trees planted, which you can do as a one time, or you can do that in stages over a few years. But with those 4,000 trees, they create 40 days of paid work for people in extreme poverty. So all the sites that Eden use, people are in extreme poverty. So wherever you're planting trees, you're making a huge difference. Now, what I know from talking with Eden is that a lot of the people who work doing the tree planting, they're women, and typically they have multiple children. So a lot of the people on average would have 3-4 children. So those 40 days paid work, you're actually supporting 40 families. So 40 times 4, you're supporting probably 160 people. Yeah. With that paid work. So it's making a huge difference. And of course, the 4,000 trees, it's creating a big area. It's a big new habitat for wild animals and birds
Yeah.
to make a real difference.
Just to add to that, Charles, thank you for bringing that up. In 2019, the UN released a report saying that 1 million plant and animal species are at the verge of extinction, could be at the verge of extinction because of climate change. And imagine what that means. 1 million species that have thrived for thousands, millions, billions of years on this planet suddenly are all at the verge of extinction. It means that life on our planet is slowly dying. And it means that eventually human life will also die because the food chain, basically, the food chain represents our common interdependence on each other. So all life really depends on all life. Even if we don't, if all honeybees died in the world, we will not have pollinators and we won't have plants and then we won't have life anymore. So, just to add to that, emphasize how important planting trees is for us to provide the habitat for all these species to really survive. Because humans, as we cut trees, we're really encroaching on their habitats and they don't have places to live anymore, and so they're dying. So, it's really important to do that. And finally, one last thing I want to share is that even though planting trees or talking about carbon sequestration and all of these are like really scientific facts, in essence, it's all about our human heart and the greed in the human heart. So, climate change is a result of human greed. It's our greed which has really exploited our mother so much, our planet so much. And we need to come together as a species again to join our hearts together and to put an end to this greed, really, and to start caring for life on our planet again. So, even if seems like it's a big challenge and seems like it's too scientific, some of the facts are too scientific for us to understand, it's a very simple problem because it starts with the human heart, the pollution of the human heart. So once we clear our hearts and we join together, we can conquer this challenge because the heart is where this challenge began in the first place. So just wanted to leave all of you with that message. Yeah.
And
That
just one fact from me to go with that. Ananya loves the facts, so let me add a fact. At the moment, the point in the world, the point in the cycle when the CO2 in the air is at the highest is in May, and it's
Yes.
measured where you are, Diane. It's measured in Mauna Loa.
Yeah, in Hawaii.
Yeah. So the last peak measurement was in May, and that was just below 420 parts per million. Now, a really key date is that the 350 parts per million is regarded as safe, and the historic level is said to be about 275 parts per million. So the 350 parts per million was in 1986. Now, Ananya, you may not have been around then, but many of us on the planet were around in 1986. And in that time, from 1986 to now, which is what, 35 years, CO2 parts per million have gone up from 350 to 420. So they've gone up, from in pre-industrial revolution, 275
Yeah.
to 350, and then
Yeah.
they've gone up a half again from 350 to 420. And so
Yeah.
the thing is that all that CO2 is made up of all those little things. It's made of putting the kettle on, taking that flight, taking that long haul first class flight,
Yeah.
using the car to drive 1,000 miles. All those little things, leaving the light switched on, all those little things that everyone, 7 billion people on this planet have done over those 35 years have caused all of that CO2. So we've all caused it. We've all contributed to that. And like
Yeah.
most people, I didn't know either until a certain time. But because we
Yeah.
put it all in there, my point is now we've got to turn it around. We put it in there, and now we can take it all out. It's a big task, but we need to find ways to take it out. And every time we plant an additional incremental tree, not just a replacement tree, a new tree which goes into an area that's been deforested or not had trees before, we are contributing to that. Plus all
Yes.
the other hundreds of things we need to do in order to take CO2 out of the air so we can make the planet safe again for ourselves, for all these species which Ananya says are at risk of going extinct, and for all our amazing wildlife that shares the planet with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both, Charles and Ananya. You know, you've given us the facts and how we have what we have done, but you give me great hope too that what we can do. And 35 years, you know, that length of time is within my lifetime to make a serious change. So I thank you. And I like to go back to what Ananya said. In our Tao science, we learn that there is a pathway of information and transformation. And the heart is the receiver. As Ananya said, if we open our hearts and really consciously have that in our heart that we want to do something, that we feel our lifestyle affects someone else, animals, plants, everyone. Charles brings up all of the facts that we maybe weren't aware of, you know, and living that greedy lifestyle, but I wasn't aware of my impact. So I can create a new consciousness. And in Tao Science, it's about changing the message. You see behind me these beautiful calligraphies. The message behind me is love, peace, harmony. In Mandarin, Shanghai, Pingan, Hershey. So when we change the message, that is how we can bring about change, open the heart, create a new consciousness, and then, of course, actions, actions, actions in every person, every company, everyone. So I'd like to do a short meditation right now. And if we can all just focus within, just close your eyes, connecting to your heart. Your heart is the receiver of the message. And it will naturally then go to your mind, which will then transform what we do in our actions. And place one hand on your heart chakra in the middle of your chest, the other on your navel, because this is the foundation of your body that can hold that energy and action and message. And really see your little soul within you, the essence of who you are, and how much you can make a difference for Mother Earth and all the inhabitants. And feel in your heart the love within you for Mother Earth, for the animals, the plants, the rivers, the oceans, the mountains, everything on Mother Earth. Feel the love for each other, each person on Mother Earth. And bring into your awareness the message of greatest love, unconditional love, of peace, of harmony, so that all needs can be met in the way that is best and most appropriate for everyone. And we ask that we change anything that is not serving Mother Earth at this time, each other, all of plant life, all of animals, the environment. and that we each can make that conscious effort to take care of each other so that we all can have love, peace, and harmony in our lives. And I will share the song which has the message that is most positive to serve everyone and everything, to hold in our hearts, to create a new way of living on this planet that does affect other planets, and also will help us take the action. And it is about frequency and vibration. So this message goes out not only to each one of us, but to those who have the power and the course of change for the good of all. The beautiful companies that we talked about, the environmental research, and all the professions that are working so hard that this energy and frequency is carried to everyone. I love my heart and soul. I love all humanity. Join hearts and souls together. Love, peace, and harmony. Love, peace, and harmony. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Diane. And thank you to our two amazing guests today. So inspiring. I feel inspired. I feel encouraged. And I think everyone who watches this will feel the same way. And I want to invite everyone to take the challenge to plant the trees. Do your carbon duty. If you want to travel and you want to enjoy the things that we enjoy, you need to bring harmony through doing your carbon contribution. So we will continue to chant for love, peace, and harmony on Mother Earth throughout this conference and beyond, to bring to the awareness of all the leaders to change the way that we do things to a much more earth-friendly way, so that we can all enjoy Mother Earth for many generations, infinite generations to come. We have our next Heart Talk meditation will be on next Tuesday at the same time. And we invite you to join us on the Love, Peace, Harmony Movement Facebook page to continue to meditate and sing for everyone and everything, for the flourishing of Mother Earth. Thank you very much, Charles. Thank you, Ananya, for your beautiful work, and good luck with all of your new research. I know that it will benefit humanity. Thank you both.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
We'll see you planting trees together. We'll do more together. And really, you're lifting so much. I know for me, when you talked about eco anxiety, I felt that. And
Yeah.
now I just feel great hope. So thank you both.
Thank you.